Welcome to part 2 of Family Credit Management's Personal Finance Made Easy workshop. Now we're going to start talking about something that many people find not scary, maybe intimidating, but it really need not be. That is investing, savings. One of the things I like to tell people is you're probably already an investor. And people say, no, not me. I don't have any investments anywhere. Well, do you have a savings account? Certificate of deposit? 401k at work? A mutual fund? If you have any of those things, you're already an investor. In fact, if you've got money stashed in a checking account, that's an investor too. Now, people say, okay, I may have a little bit here, but I can't really invest. It's just I have no one to teach me about it. I don't understand it. I'm not a finance person. I don't get money. Well, I'm going to encourage everyone to do something which is really important. Tonight, when you're home, I want you to do a search for a man named Earl Crawley and his video. Public television did an interview with Mr. Crawley. He was someone who never made more than, I think it was $14 an hour, working as a parking lot attendant. But lucky for him, it was a parking lot in the financial district. And he said he was dyslexic, and people thought he had a hard time learning. He said, but one of the things he's real good at is listening. And this man started saving, in his words, nickels and dimes. And he started buying stock. 1 share of Coca-Cola, 1 share of IBM. And he gradually amassed a $500,000 stock brokerage account. Paid off his home. He's got no credit card debt. A mortgage, no mortgage. Mortgage is paid off, has his home, and $500,000 in savings. Did this all on a $14 an hour maximum salary. And when you watch his video, it's really inspiring. And I know when I'm teaching my college classes on investing and personal finance, I always start the classes off showing his video on the first day so that these students understand and so you guys can see that, you know what? You can do it. We all can do it. It's really not that tricky. Here was a normal man, no formal education, no college, who did it. He did it, he understands it, he's successful at it, and you can be now too. In part 1, we spent a lot of time talking about your financial goals, where it is you want to be. We talked about your spending, we talked about savings, and we talked about, most importantly, some ways you can cut back on your expenses. Now, when you cut back on your expenses, you decide, what do you do with the money now that you're starting to save? Well, you could go and spend it, although that's not really going to go towards meeting your goals. So you need to figure out where you're going to put it. Well, I guess you could hide it in your mattress, but that might not be the safest place and probably won't turn it into more money. So you have to put it somewhere. And there's a lot of choices, and there's no one that's the right answer. So let's talk about a few of them. One of the most common ones, one of the best ones, is probably just your regular old savings account with a little twist. I recommend that everyone have a savings account, and you have it more than one of them. In fact, I've seen some people, I've suggested they have 3, 4, 5 different savings accounts. Why? Perfect example. You have your car paid off. So 1 more month left for your car loan and it's going to be paid off. Is there any reason why next month you can't continue to make that car payment? The only difference is make it to yourself instead of making it to the bank. So let's say you had a 4-year car loan and you can have that car for 8 years. Well, now in 4 more years, you might have enough money to buy that next car cash. And if you don't have enough to buy it cash, at least you have a nice chunk to put down. Maybe your next car loan can be 12 months. And then maybe your goal could be your next car being paid off in cash. But the key is having that savings account earmarked just for your car. You've been making a car payment for the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Why can't you keep making that car payment? Like I said, making it to yourself. And also thinking about what your other financial goals are. And create savings accounts for those as well. Emergency savings account. Start putting $100 a month away, $200 a month away, $25 a check away. You know, you've found some ways, hopefully you come up with some great ideas for how you can start saving some money. But now the key is to start, you know what, let's really start implementing some of these ideas. and an online savings account. And why do I say online? A lot of people say, well, I've got my checking account in the corner. I want to put it in that place. I say online because it's a little further away. In part one, we talked about how important it is to have that money further away. The less accessible your money is, the better it is for your saving it. So online savings account, 2 of them, 3 of them, 4 of them. And I'd suggest a website, bankrate.com, does a good job of telling all the different financials that are available out there, what their interest rates are, and because that's another benefit of having a savings account. They're going to pay a little bit of money for letting them hold your money. Pretty much all the ones I've seen are government insured, completely safe, unless you get a really large amount saved, but then you can start moving into some different banks. So, savings account, go online tonight. Most of them now have a zero minimum. You could put $1 in there and open yourself up an account. So you can find a way, $25, $50, $100, and some of you are going to be able to do big amounts, some of you are going to have to do small amounts. But the key is to get it started and get it going right now. So take a look at some online savings accounts. One of the other ways that we start investing our money, and that's having a checking account. And it's amazing how some people, more people than I would believe, don't have a checking account even today. And not having a checking account is a very expensive way to manage your money. Let's take a look just how expensive it is. Take a look at page 32 and 33 of the workbook. Here we talk about how much money it costs not to have a checking account. So it's going to cost you money to go out and get money orders or figure out how to pay your bills. It's also a safety issue. Who wants to go to a check casher and walk out with your whole paycheck in cash? Probably not the safest way. And then what happens if a payment gets lost? Well, now you've got a whole new set of problems on your hands. So having a checking account that you can also use to track your spending. One of the things we encourage when you're working on that family spending plan is how you're tracking your spending, see exactly where your money's going. So it is very important. Another reason to have a checking account is many employers today, they don't issue checks anymore. They're going to require you to have a checking account or a bank account where they can put that money in. And it's kind of embarrassing to have to tell them you can't. And hopefully they have a way around it, like issuing you a debit card. But once again, those are often going to have a lot of fees. And with anything, when you're talking about finance, there's always places out there that are charging fees, trying to make money. And it's your job, though, to have the banks compete for you. That's one of the great things about the fact we have a lot of financial institutions in this country. That means that there's competition. And you can take advantage of that, and you can still find deals for no fees or low fees. But when you're picking out what financial do you want to work with, you want to see what are the features of it that you need. When selecting a checking account, what's their ATM network? Is it a big one? Is it a small one? How often do you use it? Is it close to your house? Those are some of the features that you want to check out and see are important to you. But like I said, this is very important for showing how much it costs. So if you're not sure a checking account is important to you, take a look at page 32 and 33 of the book. Look how expensive it costs not to have one, and really give some thought to reconsidering not having an account. Now, if you do have an account, let's go a couple pages later and talk about managing it properly. Because I've seen people who haven't managed their checking accounts properly end up getting it closed on them. Now, not managing properly is bad for a lot of reasons. One, it can affect your credit. And part 3, we're going to talk about how important your credit is. 2, it can be a lot of fees, and those fees add up. If you start having over limit charges, NSF charges, you start getting all these expenses, ATM charges, it really adds up to a lot of money. So managing your account, not overdrawing that account. And if you think you might overdraw the account, set up a savings account at the bank, put $200, $300 in it, and have them tie it together. So at least then, if you ever do go over your bank account balance, they can transfer the money from your savings to your checking to pay for it. Keep in mind, most of the financials I've seen will charge you for that. So if you think you're going to be overdrawn, go to your bank account, go to your online to your checking account, log in, your checking or savings, and set up alerts. This is important for security and also for proper management of it. So I have alerts for my checking account that if my debit card is used over a certain amount, I get a text. If my balance gets below a certain amount, I get a text. So you're aware, you know what, I need to log on and transfer some money from my savings to my checking. If it's at the same bank, it's going to be instantaneous. And then you won't charge yourself any money. You won't have overdraft fees. It's a much smarter way to manage your checking account. So absolutely, once you get this account open, if you have an account now, you want to go online, set up those alerts to protect yourself from financial mismanagement, fees, and also fraud. Because we do live in a society where people have figured out how to get in others' checking accounts. The laws are on your side, but you need to put protections in place to make sure that happens. So it's so important to make sure you're properly managing that account. And what are some other things we recommend? Keep track of your transactions. You know how many times I see people who don't balance their checking account anymore. The banks make mistakes. You can use your debit card and they charge the wrong amount. So it's really important to make sure you're keeping track of those. As I said, always be aware of your balance so you don't overdraw that account. Set up those alerts online. Go right now and really get that done tonight. Open up a savings account. A lot of reason to do that. As I said, perhaps even consider opening up more than one. Watch those ATM fees. Do everything you can to not have to go to a foreign ATM. Foreign ATM, we mean one that's not owned or controlled by your financial institution. That's expensive ways to get access to your own money, and ones that can be so easily avoided with a little planning. And if by chance you have to, you're on vacation, try not to do it too frequently. Figure out how much am I going to need for the next week, not how much do I need for lunch, and end up going back there tonight, take out some more money and another $6 worth of fees. Avoid overdrafts, and I said avoid the overdraft protection. If you're going to do it, have a savings account there, move it over yourself, because I've seen cases where someone overdraws, they're using their debit card every single time. The bank's taking money from your savings account, moving it to your checking, and charging you several dollars to do that. You can end up with 8 transactions in a day. That adds up to a lot of money really quick. So that's really an important key. And avoiding general fees. There's no reason this day and age that we've got to pay fees to have bank accounts. They're too competitive, and if you take a little bit of shopping on your part, you can get one. But like I said, if you're not paying attention to this, you don't manage your account properly, what's going to happen is you're going to close your account, you get reported as it was closed by the financial, and others won't open one for you. And you don't want to get locked out of being able to have an account. It's just too important, too much of a key to financial success. Now, when we start talking about this, I also want to touch base on something that I've seen so many people get affected by, and that's loans and cosigning loans. That is one of the worst things that an individual can do. We got a little detail on it in our book, page 36 and 37 of the workbook. You want to look into a little bit more detail. But my rule is, if you're not going to personally live in it or drive it, do not co-sign for it. I had a girl came to me not long ago, and she said she didn't know what was going on. She couldn't get herself a car loan. So she came in, I pulled her credit report, took a look at it, and I said, well, you have 3 car loans. And she said, no, only one of them's mine, and I want to trade that one in. I said, but you've got 3 on your credit report. Oh, well, this one's for my boyfriend, and the other one's for an ex-boyfriend. I said, what are you doing? I said, we need to understand, if we co-sign a loan, 2 things are going to happen. They're going to pay it or they're not going to pay it. The odds are they're not going to pay it, or the bank wouldn't be looking for a co-signer that they can hold responsible for that loan. So no matter how much you love them, no matter how much they've changed, they've had their job for 2 weeks now, it doesn't matter. Do not co-sign that loan, because you can be held responsible for it. You will be held responsible for it, and they probably won't be able to follow through. Okay, I'm wrong. You're right. They had their job 2 weeks. They are going to continue on their job. Okay. The best thing is they make their payments every month. But this counts against your debt-to-income ratio. So any future lender is going to have to assume that you're going to have to make those monthly payments on these accounts. So do you make enough money to have a bank think that you're going to be responsible for these payments? Do you want to find yourself in a position where you have to find a cosigner now to get yourself a car, to get yourself a credit card, to get yourself a mortgage? Of course not. It's not a position you want to be in, and why would you put yourself in this position? And if the likely happens and they miss their payments, the bank's going to be right after you. It's going to go on your credit report. They're going to sue you. You may get judgments, and you may end up having to pay off that loan. So I can see no reason why anyone should put themselves in a position. If the person trying to get the loan can't get it on their own, that's because they don't qualify for it. That's because a bank who's in the business of figuring out who to give loans to says you don't qualify. But you're going to say, I know better. I'm going to help qualify you at your own risk to your own individual financial ruin. So no matter what, don't co-sign a loan. Okay, now enough of co-signing. Let's talk about why people don't want to invest. And I think often it's a fear. Often it's a fear of the unknown, or it's a fear of making a mistake. But something very important I want you to remember. By doing nothing, that's a decision that very well could be a mistake. So where are you going to be if you said, you know what, no, I'm just going to not have any accounts anywhere. I'm going to put all my money into my mattress. Is that safe? Is that going to get you a return? Are you going to be happy with that decision 10, 20, 30 years from now? Most likely not. So it's up to you to say, you know what? No decision is a decision on its own, so I'm going to make a proactive decision. I'm going to figure out where and how I want to invest. I'm going to take my time to learn a little bit about it, and I'm going to start making some decisions to put myself in a better financial position and not a worse one. Now, we're going to talk about all different aspects of things, but I want everyone to realize this is just an introduction. We're going to talk about a number of different things you can do, learn about stocks and mutual funds and bonds and certificates of deposit, but this is just getting your feet wet. Investing in finance, everything really should be part of a lifelong learning experience. So one of the things I encourage everyone to do is get a subscription for $10 a year to something like Money Magazine. Money Magazine is written in a way for everyone, for you and I, and it's a constant reminder as to how we should handle our finances and where to invest, how to invest, investment ideas, job ideas, career ideas, Social Security, all kinds of things in the basic genre of finance and money management that we should be knowing and thinking about and rethinking, and it's $10 a year. So figure out a way, get yourself a copy, start reading, start looking at it, start thinking about it, and make this all part of your lifelong learning experience about money management. Another reason it's so important to start to understand these things so we can pass it down to our kids and family members and others. One of the reasons that so many of us have made mistakes with finances is we don't have anyone to teach us. Our parents didn't understand, our teachers didn't understand, high school didn't educate us about it, so it's our responsibility to say we're going to take control of it and learn how this stuff works, because a whole lot of people who don't have formal education, haven't spent much time on it, figure it out and do it really well. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that each of you can too. So when we're talking about investments, one of the things people always want to ask about is, all right, how about my house? My house an investment? The answer to that is kind of yes and kind of no. Certainly our house is the biggest investment we have. If you buy yourself a house, you get it paid off, that's going to be a tremendous asset that you and your family can use long term. But more important than that, it's a home. It's a place you're going to live, you need to be happy, you need to be content with for a long time. So you have to really look at it both ways, and it also can be an investment as it's going to take a lot of money. You're going to put a lot of money into it for insurance, you're going to put it for furniture, for all sorts of things. So it's kind of both. But you don't buy a house, you shouldn't buy a house with the plans, at least a single family home you're going to live in, with the plan of making money off of it. But when you're buying a home, it needs to be more what meets your family's needs. But also, like I said, partially it's an investment. So one of the most important things is don't buy more home than you really need. No matter what a bank says you're approved for, how much you can afford, because that is simply a costly mistake. One of the things I strongly encourage you to do is make sure when you're considering, get yourself a 15-year mortgage rather than a 30-year. If you can get qualified for a 15-year mortgage, for most people that's going to be the best move to take. One of the reasons is it saves you a lot of money. It saves you a lot of money in interest. your interest rate is going to be lower for one part. Often it can be even a half a point less. But also, take a look at page 43 of the workbook. Look at how much you save. If you take a $100,000 mortgage, a 15-year versus a 30-year, based on what interest rates are at the time, you can be looking at $65,000 less in interest on that 15-year mortgage. And think of how nice it would be if you take out a mortgage at 40 years old to know it's going to be gone when you're 55. Rather, well, it's going to be gone when I'm 70. Big difference. Your monthly payment, in this example we have in the book, your payment goes up $230 a month to knock 15 years off your mortgage. Now, to me, that can be really money I'd rather have for myself than give it to the bank. Now, people always say, but I get the interest rate savings. And absolutely, you do get interest rate savings. But remember, you've got to give the bank $1 in interest in order to get 30 cents back from the federal government or less. So it's not a real good investment. Spend $1 on interest I don't have to, so I can get 30% back on my taxes and feel better. Using tax strategy for investments is never a good plan. Get yourself a mortgage, but try to get it paid off. Do everything you can to save some money and get your 20% down so you don't have to worry about paying insurance on your mortgage, because that can be very costly as well. But there's more to a home than just the cost of the mortgage and financing it, which can get a little bit complicated. There's increases in utilities when you go from a rental to purchasing. You got to have maintenance. It's suggested that 1% of the value of your home every year goes back into maintenance on that home. And you have a home, you're going to have furnaces, plumbing, electrical, roof, yard, all sorts of expenses that are going to creep up. So you got to be prepared and planning for that. Another thing you're going to have is decorating. Decorating can be expensive as well. Furniture can be expensive. There can be all sorts of costs. So especially if you're a first-time home buyer, I suggest you find a HUD-certified housing counseling agency like Family Credit Management that will provide you with pre-purchase housing counseling. That can be done face-to-face in a classroom setting, or it can be done online with an interactive class. We certainly offer that as well. But the pre-purchase housing counseling class is going to provide you a lot of information so you understand what's going on in the mortgage process, the financing process, how to prepare. Because going to a closing, there's a lot of things. Title insurance, what's that? Appraisal, escrow, earnest money, things that can be explained, you can understand, so you go into this with some knowledge, with some power, and you can make decisions that are right decisions. Everyone remembers when we had our housing market collapse, a lot of people at that time got themselves into mortgages that they didn't understand. Adjustable rate mortgages, interest-only mortgages, negative equity mortgages where your balance on your mortgage actually went up every month. A lot of real bad ideas that a little bit of knowledge can protect you from some of these unscrupulous predatory lenders who unfortunately are going to exist. And the only one who can really protect you is you. So strongly suggest that people really think about taking a pre-purchase housing counseling class. That can be done, like I said, in a classroom setting, or they can be done online as well. One of the most common ways for people to initially start investing is to look into getting a 401k at work or an IRA on their own. A 401k, if you're not enrolled in it, if your employer has one or a future employer has one, it's like free money. Often there's going to be employer matches where you put $1 in, they'll put 50 cents in. And this is going to be pre-tax money. So you're saving the taxes now, you're starting to build up for savings, and you're getting contributions from your employer, which can really go a long way in starting to build that money up. And one of the great things about having money come out of your checking account or out of your paycheck is often we don't even miss it. We're accustomed to not being there. So if your employer offers a retirement plan, take it. If they'll put money directly in the savings account, take it, because the less we touch the money, the better off we're all going to be. Now, a lot of people say, but where do I put my retirement money? Here in a minute, we'll start talking about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and figuring out maybe how you can decide where and how it should go. But before we get into that, there's another type of bank account that people are interested in, and that's a certificate of deposit. Certificate of deposit, also called a CD, is what we call a timed value deposit. What that means is the longer you're willing to let them hold that money for you. A 5-year CD, they're going to pay you more interest than they would on a 2-year CD. So the longer you're willing to hold the money, the more you're going to get. Now, most certificates of deposits are also government insured. So that means that up to a certain amount, you're going to be protected. And if the bank were to default or the bank didn't have the money to pay you back, you're still going to recoup your money. One of the warnings with CDs is there is always a penalty for early withdrawal. So you want to make sure you find out, if I need this money back before the maturity date, and the maturity date is the date it comes due. That's the day you get your money back, your interest and everything. If you need the money before the maturity date, what's the penalty going to be? Some of them are quite severe, some of them are not too bad. So you want to think about it. Now, another little trick is when you're doing CDs, is you can ladder them. Say you got $10,000 and you want to put it all in CDs for future planning. You can get 5 CDs at $2,000 a piece. You get a 1 year, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. The 5 year is going to pay more interest than the 1 year. And then a year from now, that CD matures, renew it for a 5-year CD. 2 years, it renews again, renew that one for a 5-year CD. And now you've still set yourself up where every single year a CD comes maturing, so you don't lose the interest, you don't get a penalty on it, and you're able to start maximizing the interest rates. That's called laddering CDs. Not too complicated. A lot of people haven't heard about it. My guess is now, you got a good understanding for what that's all about. Next thing we'll talk about is mutual funds. Now, mutual funds, a lot of people have heard about it, and you can start investing in mutual funds right now. A lot of the families, they'll let you do a $50 minimum deposit. $50 a month, you can start getting the mutual funds. Mutual funds is a professionally managed, diversified, which is a fancy finance word for spread out investment. If you decide to buy a common stock, that's going to be risky. It's all based on that one company. If you buy a mutual fund, you can have your investments spread out into, so your $1 you put in there is spread into little tiny bits of a lot of investments. So hundreds even. You have professional management, instant diversification, or spread out. And you can also get different funds which are low risk, or conservative funds which don't fluctuate a lot, or high risk, aggressive funds which are going to be a little bit more risky. One of the keys with mutual funds is load versus no load. All load is commission. You can take a look at Money Magazine, take a look at Kiplinger's magazine or some of the other publications, find some mutual funds that are recommended. Go online to morningstar.com. It's a free service where they will give you the ratings on the mutual funds and how well they've performed. And then you can find one that has a good mutual funds, they call it a family. So that's going to be the organization that has the mutual funds. They will then, you can talk to them and they'll let you know which funds are aggressive, which funds are risky. You tell them, what's your horizon, how long are you looking, and they'll let you know what are the different funds that they have that would be suitable based on your desires. So if you decide you want to start with one, you simply find a mutual fund family, go online and start looking for it, and set up an account, $50 a month withdrawals, $100 a month withdrawals, and now you start to do some real investing. And I said, take a look in the workbook, a little more information on it, and just start giving some thoughts. We talked a little bit about mutual funds and why they could be a good investment choice for a lot of people. But what do mutual funds invest in? Well, there are some exceptions. Sometimes they'll invest in precious metals or real estate. Usually they're going to go into one of 2 different categories. Equities, which is a fancy word for stock, or bonds. So let's start off with bonds. What is a bond? A bond is, in essence, an IOU issued by a company, which they'll sell them usually in $1,000 increments to anyone who wants to buy them. So company, ABC company issues bonds. They sell a $1,000 bond to someone. Someone gives them the $1,000, and they say, we will pay you 5% of interest per year for each of the next 30 years. Then in 30 years, you get your $1,000 back. And bonds can be issued in short-term bonds that come mature or come due in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or there've actually been some 100-year bonds. most of the time they're going to be 30 years or less. So there's risk to buying an individual bond, but you can buy a mutual fund that's going to spread your risk out and make it a little bit less so. The other major thing the mutual funds will invest in is going to be, like I said, equities or stocks. So what is stock? Stock is actually ownership in a company. If you buy one share of stock in any publicly traded corporation, you are an owner in that company. So if the company does well, the stock should do well. Often is going to be dividends, which is the owner or the shareholders' portion of the profits the company has that the board of directors decides to distribute to shareholders. If they pay dividends, usually it's going to pay it every 3 months. So if you own a stock of ABC company and they pay a dividend, you're going to get a check, have it rolled into more stock, deposit in your mutual fund, but somehow you're going to share in that. So how can you buy stocks? Well, the easiest way is to buy them through a mutual fund company, or you can go and buy some stock. Usually you can't buy it direct from the company. Occasionally you can through director reinvestment purchase plan where the company lists you some stock. If you're interested in that, go to the company's website, investor relations, and see if they offer a direct to consumer purchase plan. Most of the time, you're going to buy it through mutual funds or buy it direct. If you buy it direct, you have to open an account in the brokerage firm. And these can range from a discount brokerage firm to a full family, or you can go to somewhere like ShareBuilder, which is a brokerage firm and investment company that will allow you to buy one share of stock. So you can decide you want to buy ABC company and you want to put, actually they'll even allow you to buy a fraction of a share of stock. So you can say you're going to put $25 or $50 a month into ShareBuilder and you want to buy one share of this stock or 2 shares or $50 worth of this stock once a month and start building it up that way. Now it's kind of like the Earl Crawley video, which I really encourage everyone to watch. He does it with nickels and dimes. That's what we're talking about here, nickels and dimes. Now, why the stock market anyway? Why not just put it all in your mattress? Why worry to figure out what savings accounts paying the most, what CDs paying the most, mutual funds, stocks? And one of the reasons is return. And from 1926 to 2006, the S&P Standard & Poor's 500 has returned an average of about 11% a year. 11%. That turns out to really be a lot of money. You know, in our book, we've got a guide. We've got little examples here of how quickly money can add up. Take a look at page 20 of our workbook. And if you start putting a little bit of money away, $25 a week, $25 a week, not even $5 a day, $3 a day, less than $3 a day actually. You start putting away $3 a day every week. After 10 years, you'd have almost $17,000 at 5%. Now imagine if you had that in the market where it's averaging 11%. Put away $75 a week, after 10 years, you've got over $50,000. And that's at 5% again. Like I said, imagine if you start doing that 11%. Makes a big difference. So if it's that easy, everyone would do it, right? Yeah. That's something we need to talk about, and that's risk. Whenever you're talking about investments, you've got risk. But there's risk having it in a certificate deposit. There's risk having it in your house. The risk of having the money just stashed away in your house somewhere is inflation. Inflation can destroy us. Now, in most times, the cost of goods or services is going to be more next year than it was last year. 5 years from now, more than it is today. 10 years from now, more than today. That's inflation. So let's say you've got a savings account, certificate deposit, paying you 2% interest. You have $10,000 saved. 2% of $10,000. After a year, now you've got $10,200. What was inflation? Well, inflation was 3%. So that means your rate of return was 2%. You made 2% on your money. But the buying power of that money went down by 1%. So now today you've got $10,200. You go to the bank, they give you back your money, you've got $10,200. But in buying power, you can only buy $9,900 worth of the goods and services that you could have bought on day one when you gave them that money, because your real rate of return was negative 1%. So it's so important over the long term, especially for retirement planning, but for anything, that we try to do everything we can to at least have our money earn more than inflation is, or else your real rate of return is negative. And if you've got it stashed away somewhere getting zero, every year the buying power of that money is worth less and less. But there's risk, and in finance we say risk equals return. The greater risk you're willing to take, the more possibility there is for a better return. So what kind of risk is there? Well, if you're buying an individual stock, you've got three types of risk. You've got individual company risk. We've all heard of companies that went bankrupt or closed because of scandal, fraud, or mismanagement. A lot of the names that we all knew and knew for a long time, who you never thought would go away, have gone away. Kodak comes to mind, where who thought they've gone away, and now they have. And it doesn't have to be a change in environment. It can be fraud, it can be accounting scandals, but if that company has struggles, if their market changes, if their competitors innovate greater than they have, they're going to go out of business, and you can lose your entire investment. The second factor is going to be sector risk. Sector is that industry, and industries can have struggles too. You take the airline industry. If fuel prices go up through the roof, then airlines are going to have problems. And if you're invested in an airline, that sector has trouble. Retail, another big sector, that can all be problems if you're invested in the area. Third part is going to be market risk. And what do we mean by market risk? Well, what happens if the unemployment numbers are really bad, inflation starts to go terrible, or there's a terrorist attack anywhere in the world? Any of those things can cause the entire stock market to collapse. And those are the forms of risk, which is why it's so important that any money you invest in stocks, in mutual funds, is meant to be a long-term investment. So for retirement, easy decision for most of us. We can take that risk. And it's actually even okay if the market corrects, because that means you're buying these investments at cheaper dollars than you did yesterday, or last month, or last year. In investments, in finance, we say doing regular monthly investments. We call it dollar cost averaging. What that means is you're going to buy over a 12-month period. If you buy some of this investment mutual fund stock every single month, there's going to be 1 month you buy at the high for the year, 1 month you buy at the low for the year. So you don't have to worry so much about timing the market or is it a good time, because you're going to average out to always in the middle. And over the long haul, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you're going to have done most likely, if you look at historically, very well. So, but there's risk. As I said, do not put money into investments in stocks or mutual funds. They're not meant to be long-term. In short term, there's some great options. Bankrate.com, you can sort and look at who's paying the highest interest rate on bank accounts, certificates, deposits, savings accounts, and you really owe it to yourself to do it. Now, this may have been a little overwhelming. Take some time later, read through the book. Take a look through the workbook, come with some ideas, look at Money Magazine, and realize this shouldn't, I don't expect you to know it all. This wasn't a, let's spend an hour and understand all about investing. This was realize, you know what, some of these words, some of this terminology is not that scary. You can do it. By doing nothing, by making no decisions or making a decision, and you're probably costing yourself money. Whether or not savings accounts, CDs, touching some mutual funds, or even looking at individual stocks. Now's the time to get it started. You've taken a great first step by working at this workshop, going through this textbook, and figuring out strategies you can take. I hope you come back for part 3, where we're going to start talking about your credit reports and credit scores and managing it and things that are more important than ever.